Welcome back, dear friends, to another exciting episode of Exploring the Advent of Divine Justice. We are on part 23, part 4, covering paragraphs 108 through 115. And without any further ado, we'll have our opening prayer. Thank you so much.
O my Lord, my beloved, my desire, befriend me in my loneliness and accompany me in my exile. Remove my sorrow. Cause me to be devoted to thy beauty. Withdraw me from all else save thee. Attract me through thy fragrances of holiness. Cause me to be associated in thy kingdom with those who are separate from all else save thee, who long to serve thy sacred threshold, and who stand to work in thy cause. Enable me to be one of thy maidservants who have attained to thy good pleasure. Verily, thou art the gracious, the generous. Abdu'l-Baha.
Beautiful, Royajan. Thank you so much. All right. Here we go, dear friends. So we are picking up right here. Okay, where we're studying paragraphs 108 through 115. And in our trusty books, if anyone still holds these books, 108 starts, dearly beloved friends, I can do no better, eager as I am. It starts on right at the top of 63. And it goes all the way to 72, page 72 in that book. Okay, all the way to vehement is his might. How fearful, how vehement is his might. So that's at the end of paragraph 115. And in this one, it actually has the paragraph numbers in it. So it goes 108 is page 113 in it, and it goes all the way to page 129. And 116 starts one more word in conclusion, because that's the final part. All right, there we go. So we're now getting into paragraph 114. Paragraph 114. Now, here the beloved guardian is quoting more extracts from Bahá'u'lláh about teaching the cause, the paramount importance of teaching the cause. So what does paramount mean? The most important, right? The most important of all things is teaching the cause. And here it says, in this day, the people of Baha should guide the people of the world to the revelation of Bahá'u'lláh. The word of God has the power to refresh the spiritually dead with a new spirit. And happy is the man who arises to teach the cause of Bahá'u'lláh. I was sitting in a session earlier today, and this was another Advent of Divine Justice session. It was in another part of the world. And they happened to also use the materials here from the Crimson Academy. And one of the friends was reciting a prayer. And I have never heard a prayer being so recited so dryly. No life in it, in the sense, you know? I felt a prayer should be generated from the heart and with joy, love, fervor, energy, upliftment, all the elements of the spirit. But if it's monotone, you get nothing. In fact, not to anthropomorphize the Lord in the sense of making God a person, and make, in the sense, anthropomorphize the Lord. And he would be bored at hearing the rendition of that prayer. You follow what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I mean, imagine the Lord sitting there and just, what is this person doing? Does this person love me, or is he reading the newspaper? The prayer should generate so much energy and happiness. And that's why he says, happy is the man who arises to teach the cause of Bahá'u'lláh. Every aspect of anything you do in this faith should generate joy. The beloved guardian says, and even in the times of trial and tribulations, the worst sufferings, you should have radiant acquiescence. So imagine that. Your trials and tribulations, your sufferings, you should have radiant acquiescence. But when even in time of joy, reciting the verses of Baha'u'llah, you're like, you know? So you should be happy. And that's, I share this so that you reflect on this aspect. Even when you're saying your prayers in the privacy of your chamber, reciting and thinking about, how am I reciting? Because remember, I've told you in this class that the words of Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, should be read aloud. And they should never, this is also very important, and this is in Kitab Ahtas, I believe, it says you should not recite the verses when you are tired. You should not recite them when you are tired, because you should be energized, uplifted. The word should penetrate your inner and outer being, so you should have life. I recite my verses. Oh, Riaz John, please, you have a hand. Excellent. Always good to have you.
Thank you so much. In this regard, I feel this is a very crucial subject, this particular aspect, because we are involved in a lot of devotional activities, and we need to take a look at our devotional character.
Excellent.
And in the guidance that we receive continually, there is mention of the devotional character of our communities. And so I feel this is extremely important. And I have noticed what you have noticed, and that is we for some reason, we have fallen into this habit of reading our prayer. With the new guidance, we are having devotional events all the time. And yet we have fallen into this habit of reading and reciting these prayers as though we were reading a newspaper column.
Exactly.
A magazine article. This is not praying. This is reading a newspaper. And Baha'u'lláh gives us explicit, succinct, but explicit instructions how to pray. He says, intone the verses that have been revealed to you, so that then the scattering angels can scatter these abroad. So this is at the beginning of many prayer books. We have this statement from Baha'u'lláh to intone. And also, I believe somewhere in the writings, maybe in the hidden words, Baha'u'lláh says, do not approach me with a heart, with a lifeless heart, something to that effect. And also there's a compilation, a few years ago, a compilation from the Universal House of Justice about the Mashriq al-Asghar. And in that compilation, there is a paragraph or a statement explaining that these prayers and meditations, they should be recited in a way so that they change the heart, they affect the heart and the mind. So again, another example that we are recite these, to change heart, exactly as you mentioned, change the heart, change the mind. That's what is the aim, so that we bring this internal transformation during the recitation of the words of God. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, Riaz John. I'm taking notes even as you were speaking, because there were several, I believe it's 3 or 4 compilations actually has come from the Supreme Body on the devotional character, and the importance of the character of how devotions should be. And as mentioned, they should not become just opening a book, reading it, and it becomes like how, in the sense, it almost loses the spirit. It becomes a practice, almost like a church practice, that we just open a book, we open or say our prayer, then we go back home. Open a book, say our prayer, go back home. And it becomes, what is it? A doctrinal, a ritual. That's the word I was looking for, a ritualistic, doctrinal type of behavior that you just go to this place, open a book, say a prayer, go home. Open a book, say a prayer, go home, and count that as a devotional prayer. So the aspect of this faith is inherently spiritual. And in fact, some of the most wonderful devotionals that I've ever been to are, it might have a theme, but the friends bring their own devotionals that inspire them, generate love, but it's maybe around a theme or something. And so they come, and it might be even music movements or cultural sharings. And it's not just, okay, we're going to be reading this is this, and this, and this. And it doesn't even move the person who organized it. They don't even know what it is, because they just went and clicked, the topic might be oneness of humanity. And so they went into a compilation on oneness of humanity. They haven't read it, and they can't even read it very clearly. And so they just read this, and there's nothing here. You see, the faith should move you to the core. What does it mean? And so, in fact, every feast, this is another thing when I'm talking about the importance of teaching the cause, that are not only our devotionals, our feasts should evolve into very spiritual places. Our feasts, even most feasts I've ever been to, I mean, I've chaired Houston Feast more than 10 years, and, when I was on the chairman for Houston, I mean, most feasts I've been to, there are still missing components of the feast, and that is namely talks, quality talks. The beloved guardian says that there should be talks, and enriching talks that bring and raise the level of contribution of what is the subject matter. For example, if the National Spiritual Assembly is addressing directly, racism or whatever at the feast, how wonderful it would be to be able to tie that subject in with, for example, the advent of divine justice, or tie that in with from call to action, and tie it all in. So be able to have something presented at the feast. So the whole capacity of the friends raised, the quality of the devotional spaces get raised. And this is something that the friend, and all of these things that I'm mentioning are in these compilations. The House of Justice has been exhorting the friends to study, whether it's on the institution of the 19-day feast, it's in there. The institution of 19-day feast, it's in that compilation. All the elements, including, as I mentioned, the talks. The the devotional spaces, all the elements of how to raise the capacity, the attitude, and all of this was just because the word was happy. The reading of guidance, be happy, because I see so often.
May I say
I
some
go,
comments?
I go to Riaz John. He had his hand. Then I go to you, dear Tesfai. I apologize. So Riaz John, you had your hand and you put it down. Go for it.
I think Roya had her hand also.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I missed you, Roya John.
Right.
I raised it and then I lowered it
Oh,
because
it
I
was,
wasn't
I
sure if it
apologize,
was
Roya John.
worthy of mentioning. But what I was going to share is that I think sometimes certain friends are just shy. I know from personal experience in our community, some friends that are shy when they want to recite in gatherings, they may read something fast but I think more importantly than anything is the purity of the heart in which the prayer is offered, and it's hard to gauge that. But I also wanted to share that dear Gabrielle put a definition for intone as say or recite with little rise and fall of the pitch of the voice. So I think there are many aspects in which the personal character of an individual, and we often have talked about each of us having strengths and weaknesses, to not so much look for uniformity but there's so many factors. It's much more complex, but I think by far, Mr. Taherzadeh said that if we are offering it to Baha'u'lláh, that the utmost importance is its purity, the purity of the heart in which we are offering it. Otherwise, Baha'u'lláh would not be receiving it if it's not offered in that sense. So I just wanted to share that.
Excellent point. Thank you, Roya John. Tesfai, you had a comment, please.
Yeah, once you start bringing this topic, usually it's very important to have this kind of talk. But most of the time when you are, talking in front of the audience like this, we are going to disappoint or somebody's feeling, to be touched. But this is very personal stuff. From my understanding, what we have to know is knowing the faith and believing is very different. So when you are knowing Baha'u'lláh and believing Baha'u'lláh is quite different. This shows how individually, internalize the love of Baha'u'lláh and his revelation. And then when we are showing it, reflecting it, we have to show it in a perfect manner that the audience to be attracted, even the Baha'is or non-Baha'is. So most of the time, there is a procedure for reading and praying, and sometimes we have to have emphasis, the good words and the highlight of that to be the highness and lowness of voice that we have. So that is to be very important. But this shows also, in other words, our individual spiritual level, how we are distinguished from each other, because this shows also its maturity and how you are taking this to the next level. And then on the other hand, also it shows from where you come, your background, your family and the stuff like that. It shows all these things. It's not an easy thing. So most of the time, accepting the faith and involving inside, reading and talking and everything is to be very different when you come to individuals. And we don't have any uniform standard of level, but the only thing is, as Roya say, the purity of our heart is to be very important. But that keep in mind, but most of the time, we don't need to talk in front of people, to disappoint anybody else or something like that. Some people, they might feel not comfortable to pray or to talk anything. That's my point.
Excellent. Thank you very much, dear Tesfai. Yeah, there's no rigidity in practices in the sense of praying. But the beloved guardian has also said, that it should be as pure and be coming from the heart when we pray. And the most acceptable prayer is the prayer that is the most pure. So I share my own essence. Whenever I talk about something that I love, and I cannot help but smile, you know, I cannot help but talk about that something by probably even becoming verbose, as they say, overwordy, because things just keep coming up, right? So the more love that you pour into the faith, and that connection to the faith generates more love. When you are reciting your prayers to your Lord, this is a connection of love. So how can you not have a smile on your face when you are reciting a prayer to your Lord, calling upon him, communicating with him? This is how I feel. This is Ehsan pouring out my own thoughts. Riaz John, you have a hand, please.
Thank you again. Yes, we should emphasize we are not advocating for uniformity, and we are not advocating sameness.
Absolutely.
The diversity, there should be naturally there should be diversity and individuality of expression. And no, we're not aiming for, as you said, rigidity or uniformity. However, Baha'u'lláh does indicate in tone. So that's directly from the revelation of our age to
Right.
intone the verses. Personally, I feel we are human. I mean, we should acknowledge we are human beings. We have an intellect. We have a heart. We heard about the purity of heart, yes. But we are emotional people also. We are affected by emotion. We are transformed by emotion. We are subject to transformation. So we are, in the arts, for example, this is very well known. For example, in theater presentation, and performing arts, for example, in a theater performance, let's say Shakespeare, the speech, not only are Shakespeare's words mentioned and recited, but the tone and the manner of delivering Shakespeare is a special kind of expression, so that people get, they're shaken up. They understand. They are transformed by this performance. I mean, the arts itself, the arts themselves, for example, the performing arts, the arts are praised in the Baha'i revelation. Why? Because it transforms people. We are human beings. And so we should not feel that we are, it's not a show. We are not performing a show. But for example, on YouTube, the prayers that are placed on YouTube, as an example, those affect you deeply. Why? Because they're delivered, they're intoned, they are delivered to us, the word of God, the verses revealed are delivered to us in a way so that the human heart and the mind are changed. And occasionally when we hear those presentations on YouTube, suddenly the tears start, unconsciously, tears start flowing, and you're completely transformed. And that can happen in actual life. Sometimes when the friends are reciting the prayers with feeling and emotion, they themselves are overtaken by emotion, and that affects them, and that affects the audience who is listening and participating in that devotional attitude. So I feel it's totally legitimate, but we're not trying to have uniformity, and the instructions of Baha'u'lláh are to intone.
Excellent. Thank you, Riaz-Jan. Thank you for sharing. Okay, dear friends, we move on. So continuing on paragraph 114, this importance of teaching. The victory of the faith is dependent on the appearance of holy souls with good deeds and perfect wisdom. Baha'u'lláh exhorts us to focus your energy on the propagation of the faith. So focus your energy on the propagation of the faith. And those who should arise to teach the faith. Otherwise, they should appoint someone to teach on their behalf. So if you are unable to teach, you should deputize someone to teach on your behalf. Appoint someone. So this is the exhortations from Baha'u'lláh here in paragraph 114. Continuing in paragraph 114, it says, your main concerns, these are my summary points of it. It says, your main concern should be rescuing the fallen from extinction and assisting them to embrace the faith. And you should manifest the signs of the one true God in dealing with your neighbor. And upon recognition of Baha'u'lláh, arise to proclaim his cause. This will be better for you than the treasures of the past and the future. So once you have recognized Baha'u'lláh, achieved that recognition, what should you do? You should go forth and proclaim his cause. And here Baha'u'lláh says, this will be better for you than all the treasures of the past and the future. And this is from His Holiness Baha'u'lláh. It says, say, teach ye the cause of God, O people of Baha, for God hath prescribed unto everyone the duty of proclaiming his message and regarded it as the most meritorious of all deeds. So this is a duty. This is a commandment. And we find that as a commandment in the most holy book, the Kitab Aqdas. This is an ordinance from Baha'u'lláh, and throughout the writings of Baha'u'lláh, His Holiness Abdul Baha, the beloved guardian, supreme body, universal of justice, I would say nothing more has been written about than this subject, teaching the cause. Teaching the cause probably is the most written about subject in all the writings. And if you go through the writings, you will see how many times the beloved guardian, His Holiness Abdul Baha, His Holiness Baha'u'lláh, exhorts us to teach. How many hidden words? How many times in Kitab Iqan? How many times, in the writings of Abdul Baha, selections from the writings of Abdul Baha? He exhorts us to read. How many times in Promulgation of Universal Peace? He exhorts us to go teach the cause. And Even though it is a commandment, it is for us to do. You got to do it. But they lovingly say, like a parent, please do it. Please do it, you know? So this is really to our own benefit. And my mama always said, Ehsan, you know, these laws and teachings that Baha'u'lláh has revealed in Kitab Aqdas, it doesn't do Baha'u'lláh any good that you are following them or not. It doesn't do Baha'u'lláh any good that you recite your obligatory prayer or you know, say your 95 Allahs every day. It's not like Baha'u'lláh gets any benefit. All these wonderful laws are for you. It is for you, for your own spiritual progress, so that you benefit. So this is the ultimate sign of love. It is the highest proof of love, that you are a true lover of him, that you will open your mouth and proclaim him. You see, it's the ultimate test. Do you love him or not? If you don't love him, you'll keep your mouth shut and not even mention him ever. But if you love him, you cannot help but open your mouth and proclaim him. You can't help it. You see? And that when that love is here, you can't help but bring it up here, there, everywhere. At any opportunity, you make opportunities to bring it up. You're like, wow, have you heard about this? Or you just try to, and you pray for opportunities to bring it up because you just can't help. You know, and so this is something that if you are truly a lover, this is from Gleanings. And remember, dear friends, all of these extracts that are coming in this portion of the Advent of Divine Justice, paragraphs 108 through 115, the first extracts were, this is the day, paragraphs 110, 111, this is the day, right? That is the first 18 extracts from Gleanings. Now, this is all on teachings. And so this is also come in Gleanings. So it says, arise and proclaim unto the entire creation the tidings that he who is the all-merciful hath directed his steps towards the Rezvan and entered it. Guide then the people unto the garden of delight, which God hath made the throne of his paradise. We have chosen thee to be our most mighty trumpet, whose blast is to signalize the resurrection of all mankind. So cool. I mean, I love the writings. So beautiful. Baha'u'lláh hath chosen you to be his most mighty trumpet. Now, do you consider yourself a trumpet? Or are you a little kazoo, you know? It's like beep, beep. Or are you a big trumpet and just ready to blast and send this, you know, message of Baha'u'lláh to everywhere? What? Or are you like a little triangle, you know, in the orchestra, just making one little chime. And that is all that you're, you know, what? Because you have to understand, you know, study deep in yourself and move, as they say, unrestrained as the wind. We've seen all of these wonderful extracts and exhortations the beloved guardians bring. Arise and proclaim unto the entire creation. Guide then the people unto the garden of delight. So carrying on, this is one of my all-time favorite paragraphs, paragraph 114, because this is one of the only paragraphs that competition in the faith is mentioned. Competition. Are we allowed as Baha'is to compete against each other? Yes, we are. And this is where it is mentioned. We're allowed to compete against each other. But how are we allowed to compete? Here, this is from Baha'u'lláh. It says, I'll quote it. I'm pulling it up in paragraph 114. Okay, and I will read it to you so you understand it and hear it from the creative word of Baha'u'lláh. Okay, it says, Vai The word is, I am finding it in my, if anyone to write, I should, okay, I'm just finding it. This is a long paragraph. Okay, I'm finding it. My eyes are not as good as they used to be. But there is no, if any man were to arise, defend his
Sean,
cause.
I have it on in front
Oh,
of
I
me.
love it, Miss Claudia. Read it, Miss Claudia, for us. Go for it. Oh, I
All
found
right.
it. Vie ye with,
Of course you
yes, it is the beginning of the paragraph. My eyes are just terrible these days. Miss Claudia, even with your age, you have better eyes than I do. Okay, yes, thank you. Bless your heart. It starts at the beginning of, it says, vie ye with each other in the service of God and of his cause. This is indeed what profiteth you in this world and in that which is to come. What does vie mean? Anyone? What is it? Again, Miss Claudia?
Compete.
Compete. That's right. That is amazing. So vie ye with each other in the service of God and of his cause. Do we as Baha'is compete in service? Do we compete with each other in teaching? This is what in the service of God we are supposed to, this is from Bahá'u'lláh himself. He says, vie ye one with another in the service of God. Bam. Yes. That is the from Bahá'u'lláh. It says compete, try to reach higher and higher heights of service. That is from Bahá'u'lláh. I love that. Me personally, I'm very competitive, since growing up. And at least this is the one avenue of competition that Bahá'u'lláh said is okay, to compete with one each other in the service of our Lord. But I'm sure also the attitude of competition is important, in the sense of how competition nowadays, there's backstabbing, there's kind of one-upsmanship, and how there's an attitude of that has become very negative in competitions. But this attitude in the vie ye with one another in service, it should be like, I am trying to do more, and then the other person is trying to do more, and it's just literally like climbing a stairway to heaven. And they're just trying their best to reach their Lord and just reach higher and higher heights together. That's how I see it. It's not that. Any thoughts before we move on? But that was just a quote that I loved. I'm guessing it's Dennis. Dennis?
Yes, sir.
I knew it was you. I didn't go for it, Dennis.
I love that it says vie with each other.
Yes.
It doesn't say vie against each other in the service of God and his cause. So I think that's an interesting distinction, because in competition, it's usually against each other.
Yeah, it reminds me of walking the path of service together, book 7, that you're competing in the sense of how much more spirit can be infused as a study circle or devotional into the character. How many more devotionals can we bring into increase in our cluster? Imagine vying together to raising the capacity. My goal is, by God, my city will have a house of worship before any other house of city other than obviously Wilmette, That's something that every city in the United States should vie with each other to reach that spiritual goal, because we all know what now the goal is, to achieve a house of worship. It's hand in hand with devotionals and service. So if the capacities of devotional and service reach a certain degree and quality, the Universal House of Justice will send a letter that, hey, just like it sent it to Batam Bang or Bihar Sharif, and say, you have reached a certain level of capacity, your devotionals and your service has reached that capacity. Now you can have a house of worship. Imagine that, vying together in this service of God. Riaz John, you have a hand.
Thank you very much. This vying is quite I mean, it has a history in our Baha'i life. Those who remember the Hand of the Cause of God, William Sears, in his talks, you are privileged to have been in his presence and heard his talks, or I haven't checked on YouTube, but I remember in person, his talks in person. And the quality of his talks was such that he would incite the Baha'i community to vie against each other or with each other. He had this quality. And so on reflection, the other hands of the cause of God had this special quality of inspiring the friends to vie with each other in the service of the cause.
Yeah.
And when you went away from their talks, you were shaking in your own bodies. You're shaking to find opportunities to promote the cause.
Yeah.
This was the effect of the hands of the cause of God, and this was one of their primary missions, to do this, to promote the teaching of the cause. And if you look at their talks on YouTube, and maybe the programs at the second World Baha'i Congress in New York City in 1992, the talks by the hands of the cause, and especially the hand of the cause of God, Ruhiya Khanum, the wife of the guardian of the cause of God. You can feel it in their statements. That's what they're doing. They are infusing you with this desire to vie with each other in the promotion of the faith of God.
Excellent point, Riaz-Jan. Excellent.
All right, Ehsan, may I add something?
Of course, please testify, please.
Yeah, why, to me, the way I understand it is it's not that being fighting with each other, but the only thing is, your spiritual progress is very individual from each person, and we have our intelligence capacity is also very different between each other. Some of them, they read the writings, even they don't understand it. Some of them, they read one verse, they can talk like a book and write or something like that. They have more things to be bringing, expressing. And so we have a different talents of understanding and looking all these writings. Sometimes we need to have a bird's eye view to understand and look all the way around through 360 degrees, even in the past revelation. So in bringing all this intelligence and then put them together and blend it together, come together and consult and each other and understand each other and learn from each other and to progress the faith to go towards the kingdom of God. That is the way how the meaning to me. But otherwise, there is no other negative way of looking that I'm better than somebody else, and then somebody, why they comment this or why they say, or something like that. If something say, nobody going to be offended by individual comments or anything, because everybody's capacity is very different.
Absolutely, dear Tesfaye. Excellent points. Miss Claudia, you have a hand, please.
Yes, all this talk about vying and competing and whatnot, I looked it up. And the definition to vie is to strive for superiority. Now, it doesn't say over another person. It's talking about, in our writings, it's talking about vying for superior presentation, for more service, more, and competing in that sense, not as I'm better than you. I can do it better than you.
Exactly. And that is very important point, Miss Claudia, because our exemplar is Abdul Baha, right? How can we vie? It was vie ye with each other in the service of God. Remember, which we are competing for greater and greater and greater amounts of service. That is what we should be competing for. Because look, remember, our exemplar was Abdul Baha, the servant of Bahá'u'lláh, the center of the covenant, and he was always in service. So that is what we should be competing for. Imagine the teacher. The teacher is Bahá'u'lláh. He's got a class. What we should be doing is always putting up our hand to try to ask for more service and be so that we are called on. And in this day and age, the Universal House of Justice, when it sends a message, and we should be vying, our hand should be up when the House of Justice it calls, and we should be moving, vying ye with one another in the service of the cause. Not okay. Before you go to Tesfaye, Miss Violette has a hand, and then we go to Tesfaye, and then we will move on. Miss Violette, please.
Allah, I just wanted to share that I remember reading from Abdul Baha's words that said, in the future, Baha'is people, not only Baha'is, will compete in giving service to the world, to the humanity. Instead of trying to become president, they will try to be competing in giving service in the community and society. And that was very interesting for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Violette. Thank you. Tesfaye, and then we'll move on.
So what I want to add is, Bahá'u'lláh say that he say that no one is to be exalted over the other. So you have to keep that in mind too when you are competing in something like that, and don't feel it like when you go to the Sikhs or any other, religions like Christian or something like that, we have better faith and we are better or something like that. Don't feel even that way, just teach.
Exactly. Another wonderful point, dear Tesfaye. It's not competing with an individual. It's competing in the sense of service. How can I do more service? How can I do more service for other people in the service of our Lord? So it's how can I do more things in my community? How can I do more things for him or her? And the more that you do, the more you pour out. This is what we're doing service. And we're not competing against any other person per se, or trying to bring another down and saying, I am better than thou. All of that would be wrong. We're just trying to do more. And this is what Baha'u'llah's exhortation is. Excellent point, dear Tesfaye. So here in another extract from Baha'u'llah summarized here, it says, do not grieve at the things you see in this day, as the day will come when all nations proclaim that the earth is God's. So do not grieve, because there's so much sadness in this world. In this day, as the day will come when eventually all nations will proclaim that the earth is God's. Now, the only prayer that that is in Advent of Divine Justice appears. And this is also in paragraph 114, and it's also in the it's at the very bottom of page 126 in this one. It's blessed is the spot, right? And so I'm sure many of you know this prayer by heart. Blessed is the spot and the house and the place and the city and the heart and the mountain and the refuge and the cave and the valley and the land and the sea and the island and the meadow where mention of God hath been made and his praise glorified. I share a funny anecdote. I taught my child this, both my children, my daughters, this prayer. And in the music version, there's the, and his praise glorified. Ooh, you know, there's the ooh part at the end, right? And then there's the ah. My little girls thought that was part of the prayer. So, so I was like, no, there's no ooh. Baha'u'lláh didn't reveal the ooh, ah at the end. That's part of, that's why you have to differentiate, the prayer and what. Anyway, that was a bit of humor. Just wanted to say that. But this is a prayer that Baha'u'lláh has included, the beloved guardian included. Blessed is the spot and the house and the place, all these places. If you make mention of the Lord, you follow, this is a very important prayer. So anywhere is blessed if you make it a site for the mention of your Lord. And what is mention? What does it mean to mention? It's not like, mention means teaching, to open your mouth, proclaim his name. So this is really, any site would be blessed. And movement for the sake of God exerts influence. It's not, in this extract, it's not talking about exercise movement. It's talking about, the movement, but for the sake of God. It means service, teaching, but if it's for his sake, pioneering, if it exerts influence, it has an effect. And this is an incredible extract. I summarize it. If but an iota of that which is ordained for the steadfast were to be disclosed, all in heaven and on earth would be dumbfounded, except those who have been exempted by God. And that which is ordained for those who aid the cause of Baha'u'lláh surpasses all the treasures of the earth. So how are we aiding Baha'u'lláh? This should be a common question and theme in our minds. What are we doing to aid the cause? What are we doing? And then if that's where we are, I remind myself of that exhortation of the beloved guardian when he wrote to the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada, when he said, whatever you were doing, magnify it 1,000 times. Do you remember that? Whatever you're doing, magnify it 1,000-fold. And that was when he had just written that you're doing the best I've ever seen. You're doing sterling, whatever you're doing, you got to kick it up notches. That's what our expectation is. Okay. Now, carrying on, paragraph 114. Anyone who makes mention of Baha'u'lláh, this is right there, paragraph 114. Anyone who makes mention of Baha'u'lláh will receive divine inspiration. If any man defends the cause in his writings, he will be so honored in the next world that the concourse and high will envy him. I love this. This makes, imagine that. The whole concourse and high is envious that you are mentioning the Lord. Baha'u'lláh hopes that all are strengthened to carry out the will of God and are assisted to appreciate the rank conferred on those who arise to serve him. This is the sign of his mercy that no one can rival the people of Baha. This is so powerful, my dear friends. And this is from the hidden words. O son of being, make mention of me on my earth, that in my heaven I may remember thee. Thus shall mine eyes and thine be solaced. Make mention of me. Make mention of me. This is, as I mentioned, is probably the most common theme throughout all the writings. It is as though the painter is talking to his painting and saying, oh, my painting, do you love me? I created you. I created you. Every stroke, every brush stroke, I selected the colors. I selected them with my love. Do you love me? Do you love me? And the painting should go back and say, oh, I love you, my painter. Oh, I love you, my painter. And then the love relationship between the painting and painter should be so beautiful. And the painting should just constantly glorify the painter. You follow? This is the relationship. We are the creation of our Lord, and we should not, nothing should hold us back from glorifying our Lord. And then, and we should find ways and means to serve. And that's where that in our last extract was vie ye with one another in service to the cause. So we should try to find opportunities to serve, to do more service for Bahá'u'lláh. This is from selections from the writings of Abdul Baha. It says, now is the time to serve. When is it? Now. The time is now. That's what it's saying. Now is the time to serve. Now is the time to be on fire. Know ye the value of this chance, this favorable juncture that is limitless grace, ere it slip from your hands. Our lives are like the blink of an eye. One moment we are young, one moment we are old. One moment we have all of our brain cells up here, and another moment they're gradually fading away. One moment we're filled with energy, another moment we're tired and falling asleep on the couch. The reality is, whatever stage of life you're in, what are you doing to serve his cause? You know, I met this wonderful soul a few years ago, and I knew of this person for several years, but I actually had the privilege of being in the last month with this individual before she passed away. And this person had only been a Baha'i for about 1 year. And I'd known this person for even before this person became a Baha'i. And in that last month before she passed away, this was a constant thought of hers, was how can I, in my last month, because she knew that she was going to pass, she had terminal cancer, but she was always concerned, how in my last breath, what can I do to serve the cause more, to make my mark, to do something more? Per se, when you say vie ye with one another, who are you truly vying with? You're vying with yourself. Remember, every day you should bring yourself to account. You should be raising the bar every day. Raise that bar more and more, because you don't know the capacity of anyone else, right? The only one you know the capacity of is of yourself. Compete against yourself. Keep raising that bar. More and more service to him. You know? And of course, as mentioned throughout this great text, that the more and more that you enter into the field of service, you will be tested, right? but the tests are good because it furrows the soil. The soil becomes good, and then you will be giving off more and more fruits. So that is required. So that is something that often we try to avoid problems and tests because of fears. Public speaking is probably something that many of us avoid, or even talking on the faith, because we're scared of it. Because that is a challenge to us. That's a fear. But the more you dive into it. God, I bet none of you believe that I was scared of public speaking or talking, right? But at one point in my life, I was hesitant. Not for long. That is the honest to God truth. I wasn't for very long. Because at least in my own personal, as I'm talking, I saw the need of humanity, the crisis of humanity being so overwhelming that it just needs this. And my personal issues should not be an obstacle. And I just speak from the heart most of the time. That's the reality. You know, all of these presentations are my crutch, so I fall on them. But often I speak from the heart because that is who I am. But this is the love of the faith. Because the time demands it. Now is the time to serve. The time demands it. You have to be on fire. And I love dear Riaz John. He mentioned William Sears. I actually named my son after him, you know, because his fire, could animate any audience with his passion on teaching. When he talked about teaching, he would electrify the audience. Now is the time to be on fire. And God knows every single person in that audience, they felt it in their very bones, their fibers, their organisms, every atom in their body felt that. And that, my dear friends, that is what we should be. We should be enkindled with the love of Bahá'u'lláh, enkindled at the molecular level, so that the focus consumes us. The focus of Bahá'u'lláh energizes us, and we burn with his love. Then I ask you, we see so many extracts: kindle the fire of love, burn. We should be burning with the love. But what creates that fire? What creates that fire? It is turning to him. When you are constantly turning to him, that fire is he is the fuel. He is our fuel. He is the source of our fuel. The fire is the faith. It gets kindled. So when you have that faith, it combusts. It turns to fire. But turning to him, you constantly get more fuel. And that is when that fire starts growing and growing and growing and burning within you. And you should fall in love with the flame, the heat, the light, just like the moth falls in love with the flame. So this is how we should be lovers of him. This is from those who arise to aid Bahá'u'lláh. And this is every one of you should consider yourself a disciple of Bahá'u'lláh. What are you doing to aid him? This is, now we're entering into paragraph 115. It says, this is the day of those who have detached themselves from all but God and have recognized the unity of God, the day on which God creates those who will cast away the world and stay so steadfast that every understanding heart will be amazed. And this is such an important paragraph because also this is one of my most favorite paragraphs too. I'm coming up to it. It says, there is a company of chosen ones. This is us. You are a company of chosen ones, hidden in the holy veil, who will be manifested to aid the cause of Bahá'u'lláh. They will be afraid of no one. This is Bahá'u'lláh speaking. They will be afraid of no one. Proclaim the name of Bahá'u'lláh and call humanity to the path of God. Fearless, champion lions. And this is from Abdul-Baha. It says, the holy realities of the concourse on high yearn in this day, in the most exalted paradise, to return unto this world, so that they may be aided to render some service to the threshold of the Abha beauty, and arise to demonstrate their servitude to his sacred threshold. The entire concourse on high is yearning to return to this world, but their time on this physical realm is over. We are still blessed to be attached per se to this physical garment, but we have duties. Now,
May I say some comments before you
please,
turn to the slide?
please,
Yeah.
dear Tesfai.
You know, there is some very important point here. On the first one, it says, this is a day of those who have detached themselves from all but God and have recognized the unity of God. The day on which God creates those who will cast away the world and stay so steadfast that every understanding heart will be amazed.
Right.
So this is what it means to me. How would you detach yourself? Ask yourself from this world material life and then steadfast into the cause of God. How can I do that? Most of the time, you know, people who are attached to the material life is always they are counting their monies, how much money and how much business they do or something like that. But for the true believers, you have to count the blessed days of every single day, what you teach, the age that he gave it to you, the chances, opportunities, and all these things that you are interacting with peoples and then mention his name all over the places and everything. That is what we have to count every day before you are taking your daily account, and then not to take your problem for the next day. That is why we have a problem, is to always give us retardation. So for the next day to be as a fresh and free start, and every day what we have to do, because sometimes we do mistakes. So we have to pray for that. That's why we have forgiveness and everything. So make sure to be steadfast like a mountain, not to move around.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
That's what I just want to mention.
Thank you, dear Tesfai. Thank you so much. Yeah. So moving on in this paragraph, this is now the third time for all those tracking this specific quote on new race of man. So the first time it comes up is in paragraph 28. Okay, it comes up again in paragraph 48. And now in the final time comes up in paragraph 115. So I'm going to reread these extracts. Paragraph 28, it is at the bottom of paragraph 28. It says, a sharp distinction between that community and that people must be made. Talking about the greater society and the American Baha'i community. A sharp distinction between that community and that people must be made, and resolutely and fearlessly upheld, if we wish to give due recognition to the transmuting power of the faith of Baha'u'lláh in its impact on the lives and standards of those who have chosen to enlist under his banner. Otherwise, the supreme and distinguishing function of his revelation, which is none other than the calling into being of a new race of men, will remain wholly unrecognized and completely obscured. So that's paragraph 28 in relation to differentiating the greater society to this new Baha'i community, the American Baha'i community, and that the purpose of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh is to transmute, to completely change the inner life and outer life of the Baha'i community, so it becomes this new race of man. And through this rectitude of conduct that the beloved guardian is talking about. Now, in paragraph 48, now is where the beloved guardian is now addressing chaste and holy life. It's the second time he is talking about this new race of men. And it comes up again, and it is, he says, a race of men is his written promise, incomparable in character, shall be raised up with the feet of detachment, will tread under all who are in heaven and on earth, and will cast the sleeve of holiness over all that have been created from water and clay. So as Baha'is, this is what Baha'u'lláh is summoning us to be, a new race of men. Then, now we're entering into paragraph 115, which is the end part of 115. It says here, let me just read it because I want to read it from the source. The day is approaching when God will have, by an act of his will, raised up a race of men, the nature of which is inscrutable to all save God, the all-powerful, the self-subsisting. And then it carries on with the similar theme, because the beloved guardian ties this exactly in the next extract. He says, he will ere long, out of the bosom of power, draw forth the hands of ascendancy and might, hands who will arise to win victory for this youth. Hands meaning the new race of men. It's the same, the people of Baha, who will win victory for this youth. Youth meaning who? Baha'u'lláh, capital Y. And who will purge mankind from the defilement of the outcast and the ungodly. These hands will gird up their loins. Remember that vision? We talked about girding up our loins, and I actually sent to you what that meant. These hands will gird up their loins to champion the faith of God, and will in my name, the self-subsistent, the mighty, subdue the peoples and kindreds of the earth. They will enter the cities and will inspire with fear the hearts of all their inhabitants. Such are the evidences of the might of God. How fearful, how vehement is his might. So this, my dear friends, these three extracts you see, 28, 48, 115, is in essence the entire overarching theme of the entire letter of the beloved guardian, to raise a new race of men. And how is that done? It is done through the spiritual prerequisites of rectitude of conduct, chaste and holy life, freedom from racial prejudices, and then through the transformation of the mouth, so that the mouth will become a mouthpiece of the Lord in the sense of the education, learning, this all the aspect in paragraph 75, where it says that to study deeply this cause. It says here, paragraph 75, they must strive to obtain from sources that are authoritative and unbiased when it's talking about Islam, and they should, familiarize themselves with various aspects, the history, the teachings. So this is to bring it all in So then when you open your mouth, your word will have penetrating effect on another heart. You follow? And so this is about the transformation of the heart, which is these three prerequisites, is inner life transformation. So you're transforming your rectitude of conduct through this rectitude of conduct, this chaste and holy life, cleansing your heart so they're free from prejudices. And then you are preparing yourself. This is all preparation for teaching. Then you're preparing yourself, your mind, your heart, so that you will open your mouth for the purpose of teaching. Miss Gabrielle, you have a hand, please.
Was quick. Can I tell you a little story?
Of course. Let me check my time. Yes, go for it.
Last week, I ended up going on a bus trip, taking some elders and some children to the coast, and it was a 2-day drive, and there was no water or food on the bus, so I ended up looking after all these people. And then when we got to the camp, there was about 600 Aboriginals there for a law camp. And as we got there, and I've just put it on the chat, they saw a rainbow serpent in the sky. And then we got surrounded by bushfires and had to get evacuated out. And we got sent to a evacuation centre, and then the head of the whole thing came up and asked me, would I make sure I got everybody back home again and bring them back in next time. So that was really a bit of a lot of concourse and high looking after us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. All right. I think maybe this is our last slide. And so this is from Bahá'u'lláh. It says, happy is the man who will arise to serve my cause and glorifying my beauteous name. Happy is the man who will arise to serve my cause and glorify my beauteous name. There we go. So that is, dear friends, Riaz John, you have a hand, or is that an old hand?
It's a new hand.
There you go. Excellent. I love new hands. Please, Riaz John, beframa.
I mean, we just focus on the issue of the new race of men. I feel this concept, we often refer to this concept of the new race of men. And this is a fundamental, I feel, a fundamental issue, because this whole divine revelation, this whole new divine revelation is based on the spiritualization of man and the creation of this new race of men. So when we teach the faith, we teach about the new world order, the Baha'i administrative order, the new divine civilization, the kingdom of God, and on and on and on. None of this will happen if there's not a new race of men. All these concepts, these overarching concepts, these anciently promised concepts that are to overtake the entire of humanity and the organization of human society. None of this will happen if there is not a new race of men. So the responsibility, so this fall in the great measure resides on the education that the parents, the family and the parents, to educate their children, not to be shy, bring up their children and the family life to basically create this new race of men. So this is the essence of what we're dealing with, the spiritualization of the entire human race.
It's a very important subject, and I will send you a compilation on a new race of man for all of you to go deeper into this subject. Also, I share this with this a funny anecdote for all of you to enjoy tonight. One of a Baha'i teacher when I was younger, in my younger days, there was a Baha'i teacher, and this was when I was serving at Bosch. This Baha'i teacher mentioned that in Christianity, it mentions that we have to raise the kingdom of God, the kingdom of the Lord. And the kingdom of the Lord is actually within us. So we have to be this new race of man in that sense, right? And when I say it was comical what he said, he says, as Baha'is, when we talk about this new race of man, when we look around inside of us, we should, each one of us, have a kingdom, a spiritual kingdom within us, because we are this new race of man. But he said, most of us are not even a kingdom. We're barely even a hut, we're not even, a small hut, let alone a kingdom with all the elements of castles and, flags waving and, these minarets and all the buildings that go along with a kingdom. We're not even a hut, and it's not even a good hut. Most of the huts are falling apart. And he said that this is the reality, because a kingdom needs to be tended with soldiers, protected like an army. And this is the sense of the rectitude of conduct. A kingdom should be fortified with the knowledge of God. So you should be strong, have a good foundation. Do you have a strong foundation of all the tenets, the principles, the teachings? And remember what the beloved guardian, paragraph 75 said, the foundation of this faith is Islam. Are you strong in Islam? If not, you are a hut. You have to be real to yourself, So then you have to have a strong foundation, foundational knowledge. Then the reality is also, do you have the strong foundation in Christianity? Because that's another foundation to our faith. If not, we know what you are. Your kingdom is not solid. It needs to be built up. And every one of these buildings in your kingdom need to be built up. And so this is what I say it is humor, but this is very strong words. And that hits me even as a young man. And so this new race of man is, we have to, not only our character, but our minds have to be tuned. These minds have to be tuned. And so when dear Tesfaye mentioned detachment to all things, there's many things that we could get attached to in this world. It's not just our money. There's attachment of our mind to nonsensical things in this world that distract us. But if our mind is focused, having that attachment to our Lord, money has a purpose. It has a purpose. It's a vehicle. It's a tool. That's why it's called the lifeblood of the cause, right? Money is called the lifeblood of the cause. The fund, if the Baha'i funds is called the lifeblood of the cause. Cannot do things without money. It has a purpose, but the purpose of it is for the promotion of the faith, in defense of the cause, promotion of the cause. And if that example is our being, our physical reality should be the same. Are you promoting the cause with your mouth? With your eyes, you should be absorbing things for the cause, in the sense of learning, reading, hearing. And then with your feet, you should be moving to interact with more people for the promotion of the cause, creating more and more stronger bonds of love and friendship and ties in his name. Remember, vying in the service. And every single day you should think about, how can I be a better Karen? Or how can I be a better Roya? than I was yesterday, vying with yourself in the service of the cause, right? That is what we should do every single day till our last breath. So then every day we become a better me. That is what it is. And that really is, as we're getting close to the end of Advent, that is getting close to meaning what the whole Advent is about. Becoming a greater, more loving, more spiritual, a greater teacher of the cause. And this is what it's all about. And but as to your question, when we start the course on dispensation, you will see how the importance of the administration in the whole scheme of things, their role, their purpose, the spiritual nature of all of it. And also you will also attain a degree of such immense love for the Blessed Bob, who I'm sure not many of you may have read as such deeply on, but there's his short revelation you will be so touched by the Blessed Bob in this course, because I've put in a lot of effort to convey that, as well as also to show how this faith is unfolding, and that this per se last 20 some odd years of this institute process is not an anomaly, that it just kind of like they threw it in, but this is all part of one unfolding revelation. And it is something that is really designed by the hand of our Lord. And it's something so cool. And and this requires individuals to study deeply. And when you study deeply, you see how it is all connected like a tapestry. And it's something so beautiful. Anyway, dear friends, we're 5 minutes over time. So any other thoughts before we close, and then we can have our sharing of our prayer? Next week, dear friends, paragraph 116 through 124, our last section of Advent. And it will probably be 2 times to cover our last paragraphs. We're going to be covering in this next section the twin processes that will be at play. As you know, there's twin processes. America's spiritual destiny is also another subject that will be discussed. Also, and the beloved guardian mentions the unappreciated president. And does anyone know who that was, the unappreciated president?
Woodrow Wilson.
That's both my class is brilliant. I love it. Woodrow Wilson. Absolutely. Good job, you guys. So Woodrow Wilson. And so we're going to have, I pulled a treat for you guys on that. And so we'll have a good lesson on who he was. Okay. We have a hand from our dear Karen, and then we'll have our closing prayer, and then I will bid you good night. Thank you.
You want to say something, or?
Oh, Miss Karen first, and then dear Tesfaye. Okay, go for it.
Okay. Will the next class on the dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh begin immediately after we finish Advent of Divine Justice, or will there be a
pause,
semester break, or what?
It's a beautiful question, dear Karen. I honest to God have not thought of that yet. I will let the class know, okay? Because ideally, I would like the letter from the Supreme Body to come first, because I just sent the whole, all the materials to them, and I told them when I'm thinking of starting in 3-4 weeks. So, just to get their not only blessing on the course, but also if they want to do any corrections or any additions or to different slides. We'll see, as they say. I've already sent it to some members of external, and they've already done all, not only all the editings of all the slides and everything. I did that before I sent it to the Supreme Body to make sure that everything was, as they say, knock on wood, as good as I possibly could do it. It took me more than a year to do this one. So, but really it's, this one is 24 parts. That one was 27 parts. So, but in scale, it is, that one covers Islam. There's a whole section on Islam. So your knowledge of Islam will grow significantly in that course. I'm pulling things from Shia Islam in the sense of to really build the knowledge, because the Beloved Guardian quotes a lot in dispensation on that. So so that is a course that I also had to study, because I'm not on any level a scholar. So that really will be very good for all of us to go through. But as to your question, dear Karen, we'll play it by ear, okay? I will let the class know, and also I will send out an announcement to Texas once again, because this is really meant to be Texas, but there's friends all around, they hear it and then they come in. But I'll send it out for Texas again, and that this course will be coming, Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, okay? So that is going to be very exciting. Any other questions? Tesfa, you had a hand.
Okay. I just want to comment, something from today's classes about the why, and then about the detachment and everything from the Baha'u'llah's, hidden words. He says that, "Oh, son of light, forget all, save me and commune with my spirit. This is the essence of my command, therefore turn unto it." That's why it says, I think it's in Arabic, maybe number 16.
That's right.
But I'm just saying from that. And then this is it for today's sessions and everything. But from the notes that you sent it to us about the 7 C's, that I see it is really nice. And thank you for answering my questions over there. But what I have a comment on that is to be about chakra, about meditations, chakras or chakra.
Mm-hmm.
He used 7 stages of meditations. And then Baha'u'lláh also, he used 7 valleys. So is this are going to be related together, or is there any other way? How is that chakras is to be used 7 steps of meditations? Is it from scientific point of view or religious point of view, or that because this chakras is not to be accepting the Baha'i faith, or simply maybe individually growing through spiritual progress? Probably, maybe that's what I was considering, because he's not accepting the revelation of Baha'u'lláh.
It's a great question, dear Tesfaya.
Maybe for next time.
Exactly. And also there's several individuals, such as, my dad, Dr. Qasim Bayat, has written a wonderful article, and several others. Dr. Korosh has written wonderful articles. He even had written a book on 7 valleys. So there's several people have written great things on the 7 valleys itself. And as far as tying to chakras, the 7 valleys, these stages of the journey of the soul, goes back, way back in the sense. And it's not just in Persian, it's in many different cultures. We're talking about that in the soul, the spiritual life, it goes even to indigenous populations, Native Americans and others cultures around the world, Africans. They would have talking about the spiritual stages of approaching their Lord. And so in these, in Persian, they had actually had identified that there were 7 stages. So, and even in other places, it was more stages or less stages. But the point is that even if you go to Gems of Divine Mysteries, Jehovah Asrar, another great mystical work of Baha'u'lláh, revealed it prior to Seven Valleys. That book also talks about the stages of the soul. And so this is about the aspect of chakras. I'm not exactly sure how they're tied or anything, but this is the stages of the soul is mentioned throughout all faiths.
Yeah, but just ask Dr. Bayat maybe, and then come up with the next time, or maybe you can email me or text me on my phone.
That's right. You have my dad's number. You can go and call him, and you can call him. Okay. I wish. So, dear Tesfai,
I know it's a deep question.
Of course. You can give him a call and reach him out. Okay. So.
Okay.
So I let us end with a prayer, and I am so happy to be in your presence one more time, and we'll have our next. Oh, Rios John, do you have you want to say something?
Violette has been.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you. I only see this beautiful flower, Miss Violette.
Sorry, I wanted to know, can I be added to this group and how?
Okay, Miss Violette, of course. Email. Or Miss Violette, can you put your email address in the chat, and then I'll copy it down? Okay.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes. So just put it in the chat, and I'll copy it down. So then I could add you could be added. We're almost actually at the conclusion of this class, Miss Violette. But then we'll start another class. And we also encourage you to invite anyone in your communities or anyone that you want to the start of our upcoming class, dispensation.
That's what I want to do.
That will be the importance of the dispensation is that it is a foundation document for understanding of what the faith stands for. So that's why the beloved guardian says every Baha'i should master it. It's because it gives you a true understanding of who the Bab is, who Baha'u'lláh is, who Abdul Baha is, and what this administrative order is, in the sense of the Universal House of Justice, as well as the guardianship, and how are they all related. And I've even, as I said, I tied it all to the plan of God in the sense of the institute process, because this is the unfolding of new agencies that the House of Justice has been unveiling. And so this is all tied to this plan of God. So this is something, so I'm just recording your email address so I have it, and then we will have, who would like to share a prayer at this time? Not everybody at once, that would be overwhelming. Who would like to do it? There we go.
Oh, fair prayer.
I love it, Ms. Darla. Thank you so much. Okay. And thank you, every single one of you, dear friends.
I beg of thee, O my God, by thy most exalted word, which thou hast ordained as the divine elixir unto all who are in thy realm, the elixir through whose potency the crude metal of human life hath been transmuted into purest gold. O thou in whose hands are both the visible and invisible kingdoms, to ordain that my choice be conformed to thy choice, and my wish to thy wish, that I may be entirely content with what thou didst desire, and be wholly satisfied with what thou didst destine for me by thy bounteousness and favor. Potent art thou to do as thou willest. Thou in very truth art the all-glorious, the all-wise.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much, Ms. Darla. You can see how the common theme of transformation, transmutation in that prayer, even to the prayer of the South, this, from from atoms to lights and suns, from a gnat into an eagle. And in this prayer that Miss Darla read, the transmutation of, the common metals into gold. It's the sense of alchemy. And this is the sense of transmutation, to turn us into a new race of man that we were talking about, the change within. Beautiful, my dear friends. Have a wonderful, blessed week. And I'm just recording all these email addresses. And then I wish you all a wonderful week and enjoy yourselves. Have a great night and thank you. Aloha. Good night to everyone.
Thank
Be
you.
safe, everybody.
Aloha. Good night.
Good night.
All right. Good night. Peace and love.